What kind of people choose to sail west into freezing fog, jagged ice, and an unknown ocean, then decide to build farms, raise families, and call one of the harshest environments on Earth their home? And how did Viking settlers not only reach Greenland around the year 1000 AD, but manage to survive their 4 centuries against cold, isolation, and scarcity? In this video, we step back into the world of the Norse Greenlanders, following their journey from Scandinavia and Iceland to the edge of the known world, to understand how they adapted, endured, and for a time succeeded in a land that seemed fundamentally hostile to human life. Because the story of Viking Greenland is not just about exploration, but about resilience, ingenuity, and the limits of adaptation. The Norse arrival in Greenland is traditionally dated to the late 10th century, led by Erik the Red, an outlaw from Iceland, who according to medieval Icelandic sagas deliberately named the land Greenland to make it sound appealing to potential settlers. And while this name was partly marketing, it was not entirely deceptive, because during the medieval warm period, Greenland's southern coastal regions were milder than they are today, with grassy fjords that could support grazing animals during the short summer months, making settlement difficult, but not impossible. When the Vikings arrived, they did not encounter an empty land in a timeless sense, but they did find vast stretches without permanent human settlement, and they quickly established 2 main colonies, the eastern settlement and the western settlement, located along sheltered fjords where pastureland, fresh water, and access to the sea were available. And these communities became the foundation of Norse life in Greenland. Survival began with architecture, because Norse settlers adapted traditional Scandinavian building techniques to Arctic conditions, constructing thick-walled turf houses made of stone, earth, and sod, which provided excellent insulation against extreme cold and wind. And archaeological remains show that these homes were carefully designed, with central hearths for heat and cooking, small openings to retain warmth, and layouts that reflected both practicality and social structure, creating living spaces that could support families through long, dark winters. Food was the next great challenge, because Greenland could not support the same agriculture as Iceland or Norway, and Norse survival depended on a mixed subsistence strategy that combined farming, hunting, fishing, and trade, with settlers raising cattle, sheep, and goats during the summer months, storing hay to feed animals through winter, and relying heavily on dairy products such as milk, butter, and cheese, which provided vital calories and could be preserved more easily than fresh meat. Hunting played an equally crucial role, especially seal hunting, which supplied meat, fat, and skins, and according to archaeological evidence, seal bones make up a significant portion of Norse middens, suggesting that marine resources were essential to survival, particularly during years when farming yields were poor, and this reliance on the sea extended to fishing and the occasional hunting of walrus, whose ivory tusks became Greenland's most valuable export. Walrus ivory was the economic lifeline of Norse Greenland, because Europe prized it for luxury goods such as chess pieces, religious objects, and decorative carvings. And historical records indicate that Greenlandic ivory found its way into elite markets across medieval Europe, allowing Greenlanders to trade for iron, timber, grain, and other necessities they could not produce locally, making long-distance trade not a luxury, but a matter of survival. Socially, Norse Greenland remained deeply connected to the wider Norse world, maintaining ties with Iceland and Norway through infrequent but critical ship voyages. And despite their isolation, Greenlanders built churches, followed Christian practices, and recognized the authority of the Norwegian crown. And archaeological remains of stone churches and written records suggest a society that saw itself as fully European, not a forgotten frontier, reinforcing shared identity as a survival strategy in an extreme environment. Daily life, however, was shaped by constant risk, because a single failed harvest, a shipwreck, or an unusually harsh winter could push families to the edge of starvation. And studies of skeletal remains indicate periods of nutritional stress, suggesting that survival was often precarious rather than secure. And yet the Greenland Norse persisted 4 generations, adapting their diets, managing livestock carefully, and organizing communal labor to meet seasonal demands. Climate played a decisive role in both survival and eventual decline, because while early settlers benefited from relatively mild conditions, temperatures gradually cooled after 1200 AD, shortening growing seasons and increasing sea ice, which made travel and trade more dangerous. And according to climate research using ice cores and sediment data, these changes placed increasing strain on an already fragile system, forcing Greenlanders to rely more heavily on hunting and less on farming. Interactions with indigenous Arctic peoples, often identified with the Thule culture ancestors of the Inuit, add another layer to this story, because while direct evidence of sustained cooperation or conflict is limited, it is clear that the Norse were not alone in the Arctic, and some researchers suggest that greater cultural exchange, particularly in hunting techniques, might have improved Norse survival, while others argue that social boundaries and identity limited such adaptation, a debate that continues among historians and archaeologists today. This is only the first part of the story of how Vikings survived Greenland around the year 1000, because to fully understand their entrance, we must also examine gender roles, law, faith, isolation, and ultimately why these settlements disappeared after centuries of survival. And in the next part, we will explore how resilience met its limits and what the fate of Norse Greenland can teach us about human adaptation in a changing climate, because their story is not just a medieval mystery, but a timeless lesson about survival, the edge of the possible.